Hey guys, welcome back to Feather's Charm. I'm Feather and welcome to this episode of the Behind the Stitch series. Today I'll be teaching you how to create the treble crochet, but before we get into it, please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share and follow me here on YouTube, on my other social media channels, on my website and on Patreon. Your support really does help me make more content like this for you guys. Now let's get back to the video. So, what will we be learning today? We'll be learning what the abbreviation for a treble crochet is, how to make a treble crochet both at the beginning of a pattern and in the middle of one, and what a decrease is. So, let's begin. In my previous videos, I told you that the abbreviation for crochet stitches are the initials for the stitch. Well, it's a little different for the treble crochet. If I were to ask you what the abbreviation for the treble crochet is, what would you think it would be? TC, right? Actually, the abbreviation for the treble crochet is TR. Don't ask me why, it just is. It basically takes the first two letters of treble rather than the initials for treble crochet. And this is probably because it's more recognizable for treble than TC. But who knows, that's just my conjecture. Alright, now that we know what the abbreviation for treble crochet is, let's make one. So, once again, we are starting off with a foundation chain. This time, I'm making a chain of 9 stitches, because the extra chains I'm going to make is going to act like my turning chain and be a pseudo stitch for the next row. If you don't know what a turning chain is, check out my previous video where I explain all about it, or you can read about it on the follow-up blog article I wrote on my website. Don't worry, I've linked them both in the description box below. Anyway, let's get back to the tutorial. Before I start making any stitches, I'll first be making 3 extra chains to begin. Now, here comes the part that makes the treble crochet a treble crochet. I am going to yarn over twice before inserting the hook into the 4th chain from my hook. Let me show you this slowly. First, I yarn over twice. Then I count 4 chains away from my hook, like so. And in the 4th chain, where the arrow is pointing to, I'm going to insert my hook. Now we're going to yarn over again and bring the yarn through the chain. Let me pause here a moment, and let's count how many loops we currently have on our hook. We should have 4 loops on our hooks right now, and going from right to left, the first is the original loop we started out with. The next 2 are the yarn over loops that we made before we inserted the hook into the chain, and the last one is the yarn we brought through the chain. With me so far? If not, you can always slow down, replay and repeat the steps we did just now until you're ready to move on. If you're still good, then let's continue. So, now that we have our 4 hoops on our hook, we need to yarn over again. This time, we need to bring the yarn through 2 loops on our hook, like so. Now you should have 3 loops on your hook. Let me reiterate, from right to left, the first is the original loop we started out with. The next loop is one of the yarn overs that we made before we inserted the hook into the chain. And the last loop is the yarn over we brought through the previous 2 loops. Are you starting to see the pattern here? If you've seen my previous videos, where I create the double crochet and the treble crochet, you should be starting to see what to do next. If you've said yarn over again and bring the yarn through the next 2 loops, you'd be correct. You should have 2 loops on your hook now. The original starting loop and the last yarn over we pulled through. Okay, I'm going to pause here and ask, what do you think we should do next? If you said yarn over and bring it through the last 2 loops, you're correct. We are going to yarn over, and like we did with the previous loops, we're going to bring the yarn through the last 2 loops on our hook. Et voila! Your first treble crochet! Now I'm sure you're still probably stumped at this point, so let me take you through it again. However, this time we're not going to count 4 stitches away, since we already have our first treble crochet. Instead, we're going to just insert our hook into the next chain. So, starting off, yarn over twice. Insert your hook into the next chain. Yarn over again. Bring that yarn through the chain. You should now have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over again and bring it through the first 2 loops on your hook. You should have 3 loops on your hook now. Yarn over again and bring it through the next 2 loops on your hook. This time you should have 2 loops on your hook. We're almost there, guys, hang in there. One last time, yarn over and bring the yarn through the last 2 loops. And there you go, your next treble crochet. Now keep practicing until you reach the end of the row or round you're working on. Okay, so you've made a row of treble crochets. How do we do the next one? Well, like with all crochet projects, you need to flip the project. Because as you know by now, we always work horizontally and always from right to left. So, our row begins on the right side. Now, like with a double crochet, we need to make a turning chain. And for a treble crochet, it's always either 3 or 4 chains. Today, I'll be making 3 chains. And remember, like with the double crochet, the turning chain acts like a pseudo stitch. So you don't want to be crocheting in the same stitch as your turning chain. We'll be crocheting in the next one over. So, like we did before, let's make the treble crochet. And what you're going to want to do is to yarn over twice. Now that we have our yarn overs, let's insert our hook into the next stitch, like so. Yarn over again and bring the yarn through the stitch. You should have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over again and bring it through the first 2 loops. You should be starting to get the pattern now, so you should have 3 loops left on your hook. Yarn over again and bring it through the next 2 loops. Of course, you should know the drill by now. You should have 2 loops left on your hook. Now for the last time, yarn over again and bring it through the last 2 loops. And there you have it, a treble crochet in the next row of your pattern. Now I keep forgetting to tell you this, but at the end of a row there is something you need to do to end it, and that is creating your last stitch and the extra 3 chains or the turning chain you make before making the first stitch. If you don't do this, you're essentially going to decrease your project unintentionally. So when you end a project, always be sure to create your last crochet in the turning chain, and this is usually at the top of the turning chain, the one closest to the beginning of your next stitch, like this one. This helps maintain the even form of your rows and ensures you don't decrease your project accidentally. And this also applies to the double crochet and sometimes the half double crochet where its turning chain isn't just a single stitch. So when you end a row, always be sure to create your last crochet in the extra chains or in the turning chain. Okay, it's time to learn about the opposite of an increase. If you don't know what an increase is, check out my previous video where I explain all about it, or read it in the blog article on my website. If you haven't guessed already, the opposite of an increase is a decrease. No surprise there. But how do you decrease a row and why? Firstly, let's tackle the what. What is a decrease? It's essentially a crochet technique that decreases the number of stitches in a round or row. Let me demonstrate this. Let's say we have a row of 12 single crochets that I want to decrease to 10. How do I do that? I can't just miss a stitch. There'll be a gap there that won't look right. I can't just miss the last stitch in a row, that's too obvious. So how do I do it? Well, that depends on what techniques you use. There are many ways you can decrease a project, and lots of tutorials online about how to do that. I'll show you here one of the most common ways to decrease a single crochet row. First, insert your hook into the next stitch. Yarn over and bring it through the stitch. Now you might think I'm just making a single crochet, but wait, that's not all I'm about to do. What I'm going to do next, instead of yarning over, is to insert my hook into the next stitch along, into the stitch I'm pointing to here. Yes, I am still halfway through the first single crochet and that's the point. I need to be to decrease this row. Stay with me on this, I promise it'll make sense. So, we need to insert our hook into the next stitch. Yarn over and bring it through the stitch. Now we should have 3 loops on our hook, right? If you do, good. If you don't, undo the stitch and try again. Remember, you can always pause and replay this video as many times as you need. So, we have our 3 loops. Now I'm going to ask you to yarn over again, and like what we do for the half double crochet, you're going to need to bring the yarn through all 3 loops. And this is your single crochet decrease. This is the simplest and most basic form of the decrease. But there are different ways you can decrease your project, and like I said, there are plenty of tutorials for this online. I'm not going to take you through all of them today, that's just going to make this video too long. For now, I'll show you what this decrease does. I'll need to decrease my row one more time if I want to take my stitches down to 10. Remember, we started with 12 stitches, so I'll need to essentially remove those 2 stitches. Okay, I have my decreased row. Let's count how many stitches I have. Decreases are very useful, but how are they described or abbreviated in patterns? Well, either the designer will tell you to deck, or they will tell you to SC2 tog. What am I saying? Don't worry, I'm not going insane. There are 2 different ways to describe a decrease, and it just depends on what the designers prefer to use. Sometimes they even use both, but that's a rare occurrence. So when you see deck or SC2 tog, it just means you need to decrease or single crochet 2 together. Does that make sense? You can also decrease your stitches with other stitches, but I won't show them all here. Again, I'll be giving you an hour-long tutorial otherwise. Instead, what I will say is this. Just like increases, decreases can be complicated. Designers may use a combination of different stitches to create the decrease. So you'll need to keep an eye on the pattern's instructions to figure out what kind of decreases they want you to use. And as I've been saying in my previous video, please read the instructions carefully. You don't want to miss any detail that might be important for your project. Just like the increase, decreases are useful when making shaped projects, like sleeves or waistlines of a top or dress, or even in creating shapes for amigurumi projects or plush toys. Essentially, decreases help add shape to a flat piece by closing up the spaces they leave open. For example, if you're shaping a ball, you're going to need decreases to make an actual ball. Or if you're making a hood for your sweater, decreases help shape the hood. That's why decreases are important. If you're looking to make garments or toys, both increases and decreases will be your friends. Well, there you have it, you guys. Let's look back at what we learned. We've learned what the abbreviation for treble crochet is, as well as the two different abbreviations for the decrease, how to make a treble crochet both at the beginning of a pattern, in the middle of one, and at the end of one, and what a decrease is and what it's used for. I hope you guys enjoyed learning all about the treble crochet and about the crochet decrease. Let me know in the comments if you found this useful, if it was too difficult to understand, or if you'd like to see other tutorials from me, and I will be more than happy to listen to your feedback and see if I can improve on my videos for you guys. Well, that's it from me for now. I'll see you guys in the next one, but in the meantime, please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, and follow me here on YouTube, on my social media channels, on my website, and on Patreon. Your support really does help me make more content like this for you guys. And as always, be kind, be creative, and be unique. I'll see you later. Feather out.